Hi everyone, today we will talk about how to get a high grade in EU law. I'm Nini, I'm founder of StudyCrowd AI. I have LLB and LLM degrees from City University of London. I've got high to 1 and first class grades when I was in law school, and when I graduated, I built StudyCrowd AI with other top law graduates to help law students get high grades and become lawyers. This is what you need to do to get a high grade in EU law. First of all, look at what kind of exam you have. Is it a coursework? Is it a timed exam? How many questions are you getting? And how many of those questions do you have to answer? And then plan strategically your revision and exam preparation plan. Do selective studying if you are getting a set of, let's say, 6 or 8 questions, and you can select which ones you want to answer. In those kind of timed exams where you get set of questions and you have a right to select which ones to answer, the best strategy is to do selective studying. So instead of revising everything that was covered on the course, you just focus your attention on selected few topics and you master answering problem and essay questions about them. And make sure that you follow your professor's guidelines. The lectures that you have are your hints. You should review the lectures and see what kind of questions and what kind of topics you're going to get on the exam from the lectures. The lectures usually give you the information you need to know, the important information you need to know to analyze what kind of exam you're going to get and how to prepare for it, what to know for your exam, which cases are important to mention, and so on. 4 freedoms in the EU. You need to remember this is the cornerstone of EU law. 4 freedoms: free movement of goods, free movement of people, free movement of capital, and free movement of services. Those 4 freedoms is the cornerstone of the European Union. Today's topic will be free movement of people, and we will discuss an example problem question that you may get on an exam about this topic and how to answer it. Charlotte, a joint UK-Canada citizen, is married to Ben, a Canadian citizen, and moves to Spain after having lived in the UK for 15 years, along with their children. Ben, who used to be involved in interior architecture, now mainly cares for their 3 children and sometimes gives professional classes to architecture graduates. Charlotte studied baking science and technology management for 6 months in Barcelona and is looking for work in a bakery. Charlotte frequently returns to the UK for healthcare and treatment. She just returned to the UK for a short stay to visit her family with Ben, but he was refused entry for his failure to hold a visa. Advise Charlotte and Ben as to whether Charlotte is a worker or work seeker within the meaning of EU law. Here is the legal issue. You need to advise Charlotte and determine if Charlotte is a worker or a work seeker within the meaning of the EU law, and you need to apply the relevant cases and primary legislations, EU law directives or regulations, whatever is applicable here, and then you need to answer the question. First of all, you have to discuss the applicable law, the IRAC structure. Remember the issue, legal, then law, application and conclusion. So first you discuss what is the legal issue, which is whether or not Charlotte is a job seeker or a worker. And secondly, you need to discuss the applicable law. Third, you need to apply the law to the facts of the case. And then fourth would be to conclude. Article 45 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union allows for the free movement of workers within the European Union. Whether or not an individual is a worker has been developed through the case law of the Court of Justice of the European Union. The case of Levin originally emphasized that to be a worker, an individual must be performing a genuine economy activity in exchange for financial remuneration. So basically here we're saying that Article 45 is the main treaty on the functioning of the European Union that we need to apply here, because that is the article that governs the free movement of workers within the EU. However, who is a worker and who is a job seeker is not set out in the TFEU, it is set out in case law, and we need to discuss the case law to answer the question whether or not Charlotte is a worker or a job seeker. And first case that we need to apply here is Levin, which emphasizes that worker is somebody who is getting paid financial remuneration, and somebody who is getting paid is doing some kind of economic activity that is paid. This case also highlighted that motive for working is irrelevant. Whether it's a part-time worker or a full-time worker does not matter, as long as they are performing some kind of economic activity and that activity is paid. That would be work and a worker within the meaning of the EU law. Then we have to apply the case of Laurie Blum. 3 requirements in regards to being a worker. So those are the 3 requirements that Charlotte needs to satisfy in order to be recognized as a worker under EU law. These are that services of economic value must be performed under the direction of another in exchange for receipt of remuneration. So 3 things: services of economic value. Second, somebody has to be directing it, so they cannot be self-employed. They have to have a boss. And third, in exchange of payment, basically. The case of Stayman further developed the concept of a worker by highlighting that work undertaking in unconventional terms suffices, and the receipt of pocket money as remuneration was sufficient. So the amount received is not really relevant here, as long as some economic activity is performed and some kind of payment took place, that would be enough. Also, it does not matter if it's a full-time work or part-time work. For the purposes of the EU law, just some remuneration, whether it's part-time or full-time, would be enough. Betray is another case that we need to apply here. Betray placed some limits on this definition, as work done as part of a drug rehabilitation program did not constitute genuine and effective activity. So in this case, the claimant was in drug rehab, and the court said that this was not enough to constitute genuine and effective economic activity, because the purpose of it was just rehabilitation. Even though before they said that the motive of the work is irrelevant, as long as there is exchange of services and payment received, that would be enough. But in this case, they did say that purpose here was not to provide an effective activity, but to just rehabilitate from drugs, and that's not enough to constitute to work under EU law. However, there is a case of Trujani, which can be distinguished from Betray case, where although work was done as part of an reintegration program, it was done to meet a genuine need. So there was some kind of economic activity performed other than reintegration. So if it's just for the purposes of rehabilitation or reintegration, maybe Betray would be applied. But if there is another purpose as well for performing this economic activity to satisfy a genuine economic demand, then the outcome could be different, like in the case of Trujani. The court thus stated that the main issue is whether or not the services rendered for remuneration are capable of being regarded as forming part of the normal labour market. Was it performing an economic activity as part of a normal labour market, or was it just for the purposes of rehabilitation or reintegration or some kind of other social cause? Then, once you've discussed all these cases, you need to apply the law to the facts of the case. Charlotte in this case is not a worker because she's seeking employment. She does not provide any kind of economic activity in exchange of financial remuneration. Therefore, Article 45 would not cover her case because she's a job seeker. Article 45 TFEU covers the movement of job seekers. Therefore, it must be ascertained whether or not Charlotte is a job seeker under EU law. So Charlotte in this case would be a job seeker if she does not have work, but if she is genuinely looking for the job. As per Antonison, an individual must be given reasonable time to seek employment. As per Commission versus Belgium, 3 months is not considered a reasonable period. The Citizenship Directive, Citizenship Rights Directive 2004-38 in Article 7 allows for a period of more than 3 months to look for a job. Charlotte is thus a job seeker as she's actively looking for a job and is to be given a reasonable time to do so. So yes, they are allowed some time to look for a job, but it's limited according to this case law that we just mentioned. It could be like 3 months or more, but if they've been in the country for many years without finding a job, then they may not be a job seeker, because a job seeker means that you're actively looking for a job, and at least 3 months is allowed reasonably for you to find a job. But if you have not found, if you're not in employment within 3 months, then it would be questionable whether or not the claimant is a job seeker under the given case law. However, as we said, Article 7 allows for a period of more than 3 months to look for a job, but maybe if like years passed, that could already be questionable. First class tips would be to discuss all the applicable case law, just like we did now, and you need to apply each and every case law to the facts of the case and provide analysis. Okay, how does Laurie Blum case apply to Charlotte? And what does this say about Charlotte's case? Is it helping Charlotte's case? Is it not helping? What is the outcome? And apply each legal principle. So you need to say what is the legal principle that came out of each case. You do not need to explain the facts of each case that you are discussing, like Laurie Blum or Levin. You really do not need to repeat the facts of the case. However, you do need to explain the principle that came out of that case, and you need to explain how that principle affects the problem question at hand, and provide legal analysis. You don't get a first class by just memorizing the case law or directives or regulations and just repeating what happened in those cases in your answer. You do not get a first class with that, even if it's an applicable case law. You get a first class by providing exceptional critical analysis. Exceptional critical analysis is your key to get a first class. And how do you get to that point when the professor reads your answer and says, okay, this is really good? By just, first of all, explaining the case applied to the facts of the case. Say how it applies. Say what will be the outcome. And repeating that every single time that you mention a law. So it has to be law application, case, apply it. Cite a citizenship rights directive, apply it, and so on. You get the point. In order for you to do critical analysis, it has to be in-depth arguments. You cannot just superficially mention a case and then move to the next case. It has to be like really in-depth analysis. Your job is not to provide a precise answer, because law does not have one exact answer. It's not math. All you have to do is provide legal analysis, say which cases apply, what are the principles that were established in those cases, and how do these principles apply in the given case scenario, in case of Charlotte in this case, or whatever problem question you have, and then conclude. What does this mean for the party that you are advising in the problem question? And most importantly, make sure that you discuss all possible scenarios. You know, in law, we don't have like one possible scenario. Usually there are multiple possible scenarios. In this case, Charlotte could be a worker, or she could be a job seeker. And there are arguments to make for every possible scenario, so whether it's negative argument or a positive argument. So make sure that you make all possible arguments and discuss all possible legal issues and apply all the relevant case law one by one and provide exceptional critical analysis. That's the way you get a first class. Avoid superficial arguments. I get this many times with our students that they just cite one case, then they just say one sentence about that case, and then they apply very, very superficially to the facts of the case, and then they jump to another case because they think that the more cases they cite, the better their grade would be. No, you are not assessed on the quantity of the cases that you cite. You get a first class by providing good arguments, not by citing cases. Think about it, it's logical. Like, if you are a lawyer and you are defending a client, do you think that you're going to win a case by citing case law? Do you think that the judge will tell you, oh, you cited many cases, so I think that you're right? No, the judge will be persuaded by your arguments, not by you just repeating what happened in the cases, right? How can we help you? Now let me tell you a little bit more about our services. We provide simple study materials on the platform. You can subscribe to the platform studycrowd.ai, and you will get all the simple study materials that you need to get a first class or high to 1 in your exams, whether it's EU law or anything else. We have study materials for all the main areas of law. Plus, we give you personalized support with tutoring services. We offer tutoring services tailored to your needs and every student's needs. We help students learn correctly how to get high grades, how to draft problem question answers, how to write essays, how to do legal writing, how to improve your legal writing skills, how to do legal research, everything that you need to know in order to get high grades on your exams and courseworks. We can help. Also, as a result of high demand, we've added career mentoring service. Students were asking us to help them apply for vacation schemes, for pupillage, for training contracts, or even just to plan their career, because we did help them to get high grades, but then they were confused as to what happens after you get a first class law degree or a 2-1 law degree, and they were asking us for help. So we added this service, and we have qualified lawyers who are barristers and solicitors, and they provide career mentoring services at StudyCrowd AI. You can book them to get just general legal career advice, or even specific help for your training contract applications, or for pupillage applications, or for vacation scheme applications. We've already helped thousands of law students to get high grades, as you can see on our reviews. Specifically for EU law, we've helped multiple students get a first class. So if you want to get a first class law degree, you need to join StudyCrowd AI now. Thank you very much.